Hello and welcome to the Treehouse. We are here with another episode and in much better weather this week here in Georgia. Appreciate all of you coming and joining us today and learning and just having fun with us as we have fun conversations and get to know people and get to know where they've come from and kind of what's made them and what their dreams are. We are here today with Joseph Powell. Who is a great friend of mine. I work with him, or he works with me, one or the other, and he keeps me financially straight. And so we built a relationship that way. But we also are golfing buddies, which is more important than the other stuff.
More important.
So as you all know, this is In The Treehouse. And eventually, once the weather really gets good, we're going to be repairing the treehouse. It's just up to my right, and we'll be broadcasting out of the treehouse and have fun up there. But we still continue here by the fireplace and just relax and enjoy our conversation. So, Joe, everybody who comes on, first, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it, and it's a real honor to have you here. But I firmly believe every kid in their imagination had some place where they would go to and just allow themselves to dream big and just let it go. And sometimes it's a tree house, a fort in the woods. Some people, a couple of weeks ago, one person said it was a dog house, right? So for you, when you were 5, 6, 7, 8, however old, where was your tree house?
My granddad's backyard.
Okay.
To me, that backyard was Turner Field at the time. It was a Major League Baseball stadium.
Yeah.
I was always playing some sort of sport in the back.
Yeah.
Even if I didn't have any friends, I'd just throw a tennis ball against the house and make a game out of it.
Yeah.
So
your big dreams were to get into the majors.
Oh, for sure.
Like a lot of
for
kids
sure,
from that age.
Hands down.
Who was your aspiration? Who did you?
Well, as a Braves fan in the '90s, it was Chipper Jones.
Obviously,
I had a locker in my bedroom. It was a Braves locker we got from J.C. Penney's catalog or something like that, and it had my name on it, but the number 10, and it's where I kept all my stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Chipper, who actually doesn't live too terribly far from here. So kind of a homeboy here.
Yeah, I was pretty spoiled as a kid in the '90s being a Braves fan. There was a lot of good heroes.
That was some good years through
there.
Yeah,
for sure.
That was really good. So then when you went from there, and that was here in Atlanta.
No, I'm from Southeast Georgia.
Okay.
Small town called Metter, Georgia, about an hour west of Savannah.
Okay.
I like to call it a suburb of Statesboro. If Statesboro can have suburbs, but
I'm completely lost. Not being a native Georgian, I'm like,
it's just down I-16.
Yeah.
If you've ever driven I-16,
yeah.
It's just road until you hit something.
So it was just a small town.
Just a small town.
Growing up.
Population around 3,000 or 4,000 people. So
yeah. Very cool. Very cool. And then from there, what was kind of, your next step? Did you pursue baseball?
I did. I made a attempt at college baseball. Played at a JUCO for a year, a little over a year. And then, wasn't quite ready for the rigors of college baseball and college as a whole. So left that. And that kind of kicked off my adult life.
Yeah. Which was
what? So I left that school, and this was 2009.
Okay.
There weren't a lot of jobs at the time. I started selling life insurance.
Okay.
And that was my first job I ever had, and the first 3 years of my adult life was spent doing that.
Yeah. So how was it, honestly, because you had this dream of playing baseball, right? You went to JUCO to play, and then you had this shift in dreams, right? Yeah. And you had to grow up quick and go into life insurance. What was that like?
It was actually a good transition for me, and I still tell people now that I did that, and they're looking for an accountant, but that's what I tell them. It was huge because what I found, now looking back is what I trade was a competitive outlet.
Yeah.
And when you're in sales, it's purely competitive. Sometimes you're
Absolutely.
competing with yourself, but
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that part
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah. Well, and that, I was having a conversation with someone at breakfast today, and we were talking about the competitiveness and how we do that. And it's interesting how, so your competitiveness started in backyard of your granddad. And, even if you were by yourself, you were competing against yourself
For sure.
and driving. What drives that competition for you? Where's that come from?
I don't know. Maybe that's a conversation with a psychologist I need to have. But
yeah.
I don't know. I almost a fear of complacency, maybe.
Yeah.
The feeling of small wins. I think
Yeah.
small wins are huge.
Say more about that. What do you mean?
You have these huge dreams, and looking back at baseball, I have a huge dream, but knowing now at 35 what I didn't know at 12 is you break those down into steps. And each step is a win that should be celebrated in some form of fashion. And momentum's not just for baseball games. Momentum's for everything you do, and sometimes you just need to get some momentum going.
I love that. Momentum's for everything.
Yeah.
Even the small things. I think there are a lot of people, maybe people who are watching, who think that you've got to have that big thing that's out there, right, in order to celebrate. And the idea that you saying your competitiveness is driven by, I win today.
That's right.
Even if it's not a big thing.
Yeah.
That's a huge, I think, lesson for people to get to.
It was a huge lesson for me to learn. It's easy to get lost. If you're looking 10 years down the road, it's only natural to feel like you're falling further and further behind. But if you just, pick a task, or the book talking about eating a frog, you just take care of one thing, and then
do that one thing today. That's
right.
going to get you that much further.
Right.
Yeah. I was listening to Jason Wan, the CEO of NVIDIA here recently, and he was saying how they don't have a 5-year plan at NVIDIA, right? Which kind of surprised me.
Yeah.
With the growth that they're going on, and he's like, we do what we need to do today. We know there's a big thing that's out there, and we're pursuing something bigger, and we're working with excellence today, and we celebrate the wins, and we live in excellence today. Kind of the same idea almost.
It's good to know. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
if he believes that, then I guess that just makes me that much more smarter.
Well, I think it actually is something for a lot of folks to consider these days. And I've even coached, okay, let's think about where we want to go in 5 years and all. But the real important thing is, what are you doing today? How are you making things different today?
It gets so lost, social media is not just, for kids, they're looking and they're seeing, people that are stronger or prettier or, more rich than they are. And it's the same thing with adults. You get onto Twitter and see people that, have $10 million companies, and you're like, oh, well, I can't do that. Well, you can go out and get your first 100,000.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, and even just, I know, and we'll get there, Joe has a company. Your company's name is
Bubble Rock Advisors.
Bubble Rock Advisors. My bookkeeping, my tax, he does all of that for me. Have tremendous trust in him. But and look him up, Bubble Rock Advisors, if you need somebody. But it's the idea of, I'm losing my train of thought now. That's not good. We'll get back.
Yeah.
But the fact that you do the things that you need to do today, I think is where I was going.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're not looking to do big things. We're looking to do the thing that's most important today. So you were in life insurance.
Yep.
Right. You did that for how long?
3 years.
Yeah.
And my next step is even more out of left field, but I went and worked at a maximum security prison for
What?
for a few. Yeah.
As a guard?
Yeah. Yeah. I was on the state tactical squad, and
Oh my goodness.
we go quell riots and
Yeah.
the whole works.
Yeah.
So I did that for um, right at 3 years as well, and then I thankfully I had people there that took me to the side and was like, you're capable of a lot more than this.
Yeah.
And so that's when I decided to go back to college and get the accounting degree.
Yeah. Wow. I never knew that.
The more,
Probably not a lot of people know that.
no.
That's kind of scary. What do you learn? What did you learn there besides this isn't the right place for you?
Honestly, some of my biggest lessons came from there. When I tell people that I worked in a prison, the first thing they want to know is about the fights and riots and stuff like that. But you're essentially, you're going into a dorm with 100, convicted felons who, in a maximum security prison, that means that they've been in prison and they are still getting in trouble.
Yeah.
So you're going into a dorm of 100 people, and it's just you. You don't have a gun. You have a walkie-talkie, and you have keys.
Yeah.
And so the lesson is you have somebody who, to their knowledge, is not incentivized to do anything that you want them to do.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to communicate to them to get them to do what you need them to do. But you do that by asking questions.
Yeah.
And just talking and communicating in a way that makes them realize that it's in their best interest to do that. Wow. And that's I do that every day now.
Yeah. So that's the number one sales technique.
For sure.
Right. The way we sell, you could do a book, sales by what I learned in maximum security.
Yeah.
Of asking questions and just asking questions, digging deeper until you get somebody to actually, for them to understand what
I hate writing. That's why I went into accounting. But you can ghostwrite the book for me.
Okay.
And
all right.
We'll make millions.
Well, okay.
I took a class when I was there, and it was called motivational interviewing, which is basically that style. And at the when you're taking the class, you're like, this is ridiculous. Like, you're just asking questions, almost for hours on end.
Yeah.
To eventually get them to realize, like, hey, I should do this. This is the best for me.
Yeah.
But it works wonders. And then eventually, when I got into Georgia Southern, into my accounting program, they have a forensics focus. So one of the professors there that leads the forensics, curriculum is a retired FBI agent.
Yeah.
And I took his class that I took was forensic interviews and interrogations.
Wow.
So you see, you watch TV and you watch the movies, and they're always interrogating people by slamming their fist on the table and saying, tell me, but that's not the case at all. You have to go in there and you build rapport.
Yeah.
And that, 70% of the time is you build a rapport.
Yeah.
And then you can come back with a narrative and tell a story based on that. But you have to make people trust you and want to talk to you, and that requires some time and attention.
You're giving us a sales lesson today.
Who knew I was meant to be a sales trainer?
It is what it is.
Yeah.
You do good sales. I'm going to take a moment here because we're talking about sales to talk about our sponsor of the show, a friend of both of ours, Fist Bump, that has an office where we have our offices down in Alpharetta. Fist Bump is great in helping people. If you hate cold calling, right? You like cold calling.
Yep. Does anybody?
No, I don't. I've found very few people who like cold calling. Yeah. And Fist Bumps understands that. As the name implies, they want to do where it's like you're doing the fist bump. You're connecting with people. And they work with you to develop your connectedness, your relationships, your touching base with other people who you want to do business with through LinkedIn and other social medias. They produce our show here, and all the folks who are behind the scenes here and working with us are all part of Fist Bump. And so we're extremely grateful that they sponsor the show and encourage you to check them out and look up Brandon and so
I'll second that. Love Brandon, great guy.
he is a great guy. We're going to have him on the show here
You should
soon. He's
I'll definitely
dynamic.
tune in.
Yeah. Well, you tune into all my
I
shows,
do.
don't you?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. We
Don't
have
lie.
watch parties.
Yeah. All right. So you went from being a maximum security guard back to school,
Yeah.
going into accounting.
Yeah.
All right. And that was how long ago? That was only
2013.
yeah. 10, 12 years ago. Yeah. So and you went into one of the big firms, right?
I went into, call it a regional firm. We had the first firm I worked at had 4 or 5 offices with 200 or so employees across them. But I would say regional in the fact client base. I work with small business now. And they did, but they work with a little bit larger.
Yeah, and that wasn't necessarily your fit because you were there a few years and
So I worked at two firms. I actually went to a little bit of a bigger firm from there for promotion. You know me, I'm a little extroverted.
You're not the typical
accountant. The public accounting.
I used to be at PwC.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So I spent a little bit of time at PwC. I wasn't accountant. I was in the infrastructure part.
Okay.
And I ran their travel department.
Oh,
so
we're learning a lot about each other. I didn't know that.
But when I was there, I learned a lot of accountant jokes.
Yeah.
Like, you know an extroverted accountant?
Oh, I know a bunch of answers for this. Is this the shoes one?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead and give those.
So, an extroverted accountant, they look at your shoes, when they're talking at you. Yeah. So
love that one.
Yeah.
I love accountant jokes.
Yeah. Oh, there's a ton of them.
But
you are not the typical accountant.
I'm not, and it took me a little. I tried to force myself to be that, and that's one of the things I learned is I just I'm not going to sit in a cubicle for 12 hours a day. It's just not me. I need to talk with people. I need to build relationships. So that was huge.
Plus, going back to your granddad's yard, you're a competitor.
Yeah.
And a lot of those accountants, they don't have a competitive nature.
There's not a competitive outlet.
Yeah. So you're very different, and so when you were there, you weren't able to be true to yourself.
For sure. Yeah, I would agree with that. Now I'm very thankful for the time I spent there. My first firm, I had, great people work there. I had an awesome mentor, one of the partners there. He was also from South Georgia, and he kind of took me under his wing. And he, one thing I learned from him is he was absolutely himself. He showed his humor. He kind of said sometimes the first thing that comes to his mind, which I also do. And it was huge having him there. Yeah. And we had several conversations where he pulled me to the side and was like, you're a lot like I was. Yeah. And, it's hard to, this head down, 12 hours a day is hard, but you need the base, need the base knowledge. Like that's the first piece.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good experience, but ultimately not for me.
What would you say was the number one thing you took from that? The number one learning?
Well, the technical skills.
Really?
First of all, I wouldn't be able to do anything I do without them.
Yeah.
Just how to deal with clients. Kind of what they're looking for. What they're not looking for. Sometimes things. What they need, what they don't need.
Yeah.
A lot of times, public accounting firms, and this is starting to change, but they're stuck in the cycle of compliance. Yeah. So send us your tax return, we'll do it. We'll send you a bill. Yeah. You need an audit, we'll audit you. Here's your opinion.
Yeah.
But I've found working with small businesses, they need advice. They want to know what to do, and it doesn't always center around how much am I going to owe in taxes. It's centered around of how am I going to pay these bills next week. So
that's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. So at what point did you say, I want to work for myself?
I've always kind of felt that.
Yeah.
You know, when I sold insurance, I was, a self-employed broker, and I love the independence. I love, waking up and being responsible to eat what I kill.
Yeah.
And I always kind of felt that. And then, in the back of your mind, typical of working any corporate job, you're sitting there and you're like, there's got to be a better way to do this, So that was always in the back of my mind.
Yeah. Okay. So when you left the second firm, is that when you created
That's when I
Bubble Rock?
started Bubble Rock. Yeah.
And I've always meant to ask you, so now I get the opportunity, right? How in the world did you come up with the term Bubble Rock or the name Bubble Rock?
Yeah.
Did you do like 14 focus groups and like
studies?
That's what came back.
I hired McKinsey. Paid him a couple $1 million to give me a name. So I had this plan for going out on my own, and I knew what I wanted that to look like. But I was also at a point where the accounting job market was getting really hot. So I went and I interviewed at some companies for internal jobs just to do my due diligence and see what's out there. And I ended up and I had 3 really good job offers. That a year earlier I would have jumped on in a heartbeat. But I kind of knew I wanted to do my own thing. But it's a scary proposition to go from a safe salary to zero. But Bubble Rock came from my wife and I went on a trip to Maine, Acadia National Park. And we went off this. There's a Jordan Pond is a pond with a trail that goes around it. But then there was just a random trail, and we're like, well, let's take it. And we took it, and it was a little bit harder of a hike than I thought. You're doing some technical rock climbing, and it was hard and a little scary. And anyways, long story short, we get to the top, and we're standing there, and we're overlooking the Atlantic Ocean, and the spiritual moment or whatever you want to say. It was like a sense of peace came over me, and I was like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go out on my own. So we kind of looked back, a week or 2 later, and I was like, all right, I know the name. So that's
was that called Bubble Rock or something?
So there's a huge boulder basically that's dangling on the edge of the mountain, and that is Bubble Rock.
Okay.
So it's called the Bubble Rock Summit or something like that. So
I love that analogy even of it was harder than you think. It required you to push yourself more than what you thought you would have to when you first started out.
For sure.
And yet you get to the top. And it's like, this is what it's about.
It'd make a great Super Bowl commercial.
It would. It would. But it also makes a great analogy for business.
It does.
Right?
I updated my About Me or About Us section on my website and incorporated that story.
Yeah.
And
that's an awesome story.
Yeah.
So as you started, and you've been in business how many years now?
What month is it right now?
January. Still?
January. So a little over 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah. 2.25 or so.
Yeah. And how's it going?
It's great.
You living the dream?
I am living the dream, even though depending on what time of day you ask me, it's like a continual cycle of, the world is on fire, and then you're like, oh, I'm kind of good at this. I'm getting it. But it's good. Year 1 was basically spent learning what I didn't know. Year 2, I started getting some traction with, getting some referrals, which are the key to, business. And that now heading into my 3rd year, the referrals I've gotten have started referring to me, which is
awesome.
So that's, to me, that's kind of the trigger of like, what I'm doing is working.
I call them raving fans. If they're bringing you business, you take good care of them.
For sure. So starting to see that compounding from a process standpoint. I'm starting to kind of hone in on, different automations and, what do I need to communicate to clients? What do I not, what do they really need from a, solution standpoint? What services do I really need to provide them? So I feel like now going into year 3 that I'm focused and I have more of a plan than I did before.
So when you first started, what was your dream for your business?
I didn't really know. I just knew that I wanted to control my own destiny, and I wanted to, do work on my terms, so to speak. obviously I wanted to get big. I wanted to scale, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Now looking back, who doesn't want to do 10 or 15 million in revenue, but
Yeah.
I want to provide value. I love when clients, the light bulb clicks and they're appreciative of things I've done. So that feeling kind of keeps me going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's been a ton of changes, over the last, definitely over the last 5 years since COVID. Everything has changed, right? In the accounting industry, it is in turmoil these days.
Yep.
It's just absolutely crazy. And I have so many of my clients who come to me and they're like, Mike, I can't find a good bookkeeper. I can't find somebody who even calls me back. We have people who, I just got a letter from my accountant that he's,
Retiring.
or she are
Shutting the
retiring.
door,
Good luck. Here's your files, right? I mean, how are you dealing with this challenge?
Well, in every challenge, there's an opportunity. So
Yeah.
I'm coming in at 35, and I'm able to provide that service on a very small scale. Clients don't really like what I found is clients don't appreciate just being a number in a firm.
Yeah.
And then the staff that works on your account, they turn over every year, so you're always dealing with somebody new.
Yeah.
So they appreciate that. So what's happening in the industry is a combination of accountants aging out.
Yeah.
They're all old. They're all retirement age.
Yeah.
Like 75% is 5 years from retirement.
Yeah.
Combine that with the pipeline, not enough students going into accounting.
Yeah.
There's been what's happening are firms are point blank firing clients, and then the ones that don't fire, they're hiking rates up.
Yeah.
Which rates should have gone up years ago.
Yeah.
But so that it's creating a good opportunity.
But it's creating some shell shock and sticker shock for folks.
It is.
Yeah. What do you mean I have to pay $750 or $1,000 a month for my books? It was always $250, right? Yeah, it's crazy.
So, a lot's happening, and that creates a good opportunity. My clients appreciate that they work with me.
Yeah.
I do have help, but the clients deal with me. I am involved in their accounts at all times. So, and they appreciate that.
Yeah. What's your biggest challenge these days? Where's your pain?
The biggest challenge right now is figuring out, really how to scale. Again, hiring's not easy. People, it's just tough.
It is.
So figuring that out, balancing my workload between Bubble Rock Advisors is meant to be an advisory firm. So, balancing that between the compliance of just pushing out tax returns. If it starts to weigh too heavy on one side, then it's out of balance. So keeping that in check is huge. And then, back to the scalability, I'm interacting with the clients, I'm marketing, I'm selling, and then I have to turn around and do the work. Which has been fine up to this point. But
how do you clone yourself to be able to do more?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a challenge of a lot of small businesses. And it's hard to do.
It is hard to do.
It's I don't think anybody has successfully cloned a human being.
They have not.
So,
how do you get somebody to care as much as you do? First off, you can't.
Yeah.
You just have to align their incentives with your incentives.
Yeah.
But, that's a tough conversation in itself.
Yeah. Well, and that's probably a conversation that we should have offline.
We should.
Because
that's what you do. Huh?
That's what I do, right? I help business owners to scale and to do more. And that's not why I brought you on.
That's okay.
But
you brought me on because I have great hair. Let's be honest.
You have much better hair than I do. I'll wholeheartedly admit. 99% of the world has better hair than me.
That's okay.
So that's I've come to live with it.
You've got great bourbon. So
hey, cheers.
Yes. Thanks for having me.
You know,
here.
folks who come on and we have bourbon together and a fire.
Fireplace.
This is, you know,
Things could be worse.
What's a better way to spend a Wednesday afternoon?
That's right.
You know, so the other thing that I know about you, and you know, as much as you're willing to share, but you talk about scaling. You talk, you know, we talked offline, you know, just in our conversations about some of the ways that you're growing, right? And your dream to become this large firm, right? I mean, that's your dream. Is you don't want to stay a one man shop, right?
Yeah.
You
A
don't-
firm that scales in the way that I want it to scale. I don't want to be, I'm not looking to be PwC where I sit at the top of the pyramid and then I just have
Yeah.
continual turnover. So, as much as you can scale with still providing the same value to
personal
clients.
level of
Exactly.
absolutely. Whether it's you or whether it's people who work for you,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
But it's got to be that high level, that those values,
Correct.
right? And maybe that's what it is you establishing those values and that culture, and you hire to that culture, you know, which is really important. But where I was going was, you have been in the process of, and we talked about the attrition and the turmoil of basically buying some new firms, right?
I have.
Yeah. So I know not all accounting firms, but a lot of people, and in this market, right, there is a tremendous opportunity for just about any business to be buying other businesses,
For sure.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've come through, frankly, a real dark time when it comes to business. A lot of businesses have gone out of business the last year or 2 years because they just couldn't handle the regulations and other things. There's going to be an opportunity for real massive growth in the next 1 to 2 years. In my estimation, I'm seeing a tremendous opportunity
that.
for growth.
And if once interest rates give just a little bit, it's
going to go.
Like gas on the
Yeah.
pour gas on the fire.
Yeah. But I think one of the most fundamental ways of a business growing is buying other businesses. So tell me a little bit about your methodology, without revealing any secrets, right? Of how do you find a business that is worthwhile for you to buy? And what makes you think, yeah, this is something that I think would make sense. And I think it would be interesting from an accountant perspective, because most people who are landscapers or in other industries, they don't have the financial background necessarily to think. They just see, okay, John's going out of business, I'll buy his equipment, right? And that's how they do a merger. But
so in general, first off, fun stat for you. The stat gets thrown around all the time that 90% of new businesses that start are out of business within 5 years.
Yeah.
But that is basically flipped when you purchase an existing business that's been in business for 5 years. Is 90% are still in business 5 years later.
Okay, so let me understand that.
Okay.
So if you are in business and you buy another business, there's a percentage that you will be 90% chance.
You don't even have to be in business.
Yeah.
If you acquire an existing business, you have a 90% chance of
success.
Of success.
Really?
Because they've done the hard part. If you buy the right business, they've already figured out the market. They've got employees. They figured out processes. As far as looking at businesses buying, this is big picture, not just specific to activity that I've done, but ideally you'd want to see 3 years of growth.
Yeah.
Clean books. That's huge.
Yeah.
And then you want to ideally you want to be buying a business and not a job.
Yeah.
So you want to see that the owner is not super involved in the business.
Yeah.
You don't want other things you look for is concentrations in customers. You don't want one customer to represent 80% of the revenue. That wouldn't be a very, very safe bet.
Yeah.
So for me specifically, I got lucky last year, and I had one of the retiring CPA was, had enough. He was shutting his doors, and he told his clients, "Look, I'm done."
Yeah.
And I met him through a series of referrals, and he basically just referred his clients to me, which is an ideal scenario.
So you didn't even have to buy it.
Exactly.
You just
Sat
doubled
back.
your business overnight. Just
Exactly. That's 100% what happened.
that is an awesome acquisition.
It was success, you know. Then I did just recently close on an acquisition of a small firm in Chicago, and so what you look for specific to me is how old is the client base?
Yeah.
You know, are they 75 or are they 50?
Yeah.
That makes a difference. What are they charging? Are our fees kind of in line?
Yeah.
Because you know you can't if
you're going to lose 90% of the
Yeah.
client base as soon as you come on. It doesn't make
100%.
sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I also look at, like, you know, what systems are they using? How well trained are their clients?
Yeah.
We use the same software. We use the same client portal and communications manager. So from that perspective, it was very simple to transition them in.
Yeah.
And train them because we essentially use the same process.
And I think that is probably the smoothest. The other that I think about when you talk about clean books, and I've talked with some of my clients who are looking to do acquisitions, and you know a number of my clients because you've worked with some and others as well, because I refer you out to my clients. But one of the things I teach them is to make sure they understand their books and have clean books, so that when they go to sell or when they go to the bank, they actually know what they're talking about, right? It's important to know their numbers. But I also coach them. It's like when you go to buy somebody, it's not necessarily a bad thing if that other business doesn't know their numbers and doesn't have clean books, because if you understand it, it puts you at an advantage to be able to buy them kind of in a fire sale. What's your thought about that?
I'm an accountant.
You're an accountant.
I'm very risk averse.
Yeah.
But
even though you're an extrovert, you're risk averse.
It's a weird. I have like these things that always compete against each other. I know books. I can fairly kind of clean them up. I'm not buying a business that doesn't have fairly serviceable books.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's the books. So what you're saying, combine that with anytime you buy a business, hopefully there's some sort of value you can have.
Yeah.
So maybe they don't have, technology integrated enough, and or there's an add-on service they can provide. So I mean, the same rule there applies. Like if there's a way that you can get it cheaper and then come in and add value, then
I think the bottom line is, when you do acquisitions, people, understanding that you're buying an asset, right? And you have to determine what the value is of that asset for you. And the other person is determining whatever the value is of that asset that they're buying, right? Back when I worked for PwC, but I also worked for the Koch brothers, right? And, they buy and sell businesses all the time.
Every day.
Yeah. And their philosophy was, when a business that we have is more valuable to somebody else than it is to me, then I'm selling it to them. Right. Or if I find more value in a business than somebody else, then I'm buying it because I can make more money out of it. Right. But it's always, can I make money at this? Can I make money in this business? Yes.
How much risk are you willing to accept?
Yeah.
So for my example, if I'm approaching a firm that's wants to sell for $300,000, to me that's a big deal. I'm doing a bunch of due diligence.
Yeah.
You have a firm that's already doing $6-7 million in revenue. They're just going to come throw a check at them and take what they can get.
Yeah.
So how much risk are you willing to accept?
So as we kind of start to wrap up things here, we've been talking about dreams. I love how if we weave your life, the evolution of your life. I don't know. I mean, I'm going from competitive baseball in the backyard to being very competitive in your accounting business today, and competitive in a sense that it's a personal competitive. You don't necessarily compete against other firms that are out there, but it's your own personal competitiveness that drives you. So in that competitiveness, if you look a year or 2 years out, where are you? What's your dream? Where do you want to be?
Well, I'm in rapid growth mode. So, obviously I've been looking at acquisitions on, to get organic clients, and that's happening.
Yeah.
A lot of things that I had been doing, in the community networking is starting to really pay off.
Yeah.
So, hopefully my client base continues to double.
Yeah.
That'd be great. And then I want to be to a point. Community. I mentioned community. We're both involved in Rotary clubs, active in our churches. Ideally, you get to a point where you don't have to say, "Oh, will this hurt me to give this back?" You want to be able to give freely. So if I can get to that point in the next, year or two, I think that'd be ideal.
Yeah. I heard someone talk this past week. The real joy as we're growing our businesses is when we have enough money that we can go and pay somebody's rent for a year who's really struggling, and just out of the blue, and see the absolute joy that comes on their face, for taking that burden off of them, and knowing that it doesn't impact us at all. Right? It's like, I mean, what freedom and what joy comes with that, and that's I think that's the heart of a lot of small business owners that people don't get is
they're the ones that are sponsoring little league teams and
and love their community and want to help and dig in and all of that. And you mentioned Rotary, and we'll close here just with this, that both Joe and I will be getting ourselves very cold this Saturday at the Alpharetta Polar Bear Plunge, Alpharetta Rotary Polar Bear Plunge at Wills Park. I am $300 short of my goal so far. Have you reached your goal?
I have not. So I could use some help too.
So if you want to sponsor either of us, I am jumping into a freezing cold pool of water for Habitat for Humanity of North Forsyth, Cherokee, Dawson counties, and you are jumping for...
I'm jumping for Revved Up Kids. It's a local charity here that provides education and resources to help protect kids, help keep kids safe from sexual predators.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and do my shout out.
Yeah.
My link, if you're on my LinkedIn, if you just scroll on my LinkedIn, I have a link there. You can go to the link and give. And I am $500 away.
Okay.
So we're close.
Your goal is what?
1,000.
Okay.
So I'm halfway there.
Yeah.
But it's a great organization.
Yeah.
So
both great organizations. I'll tell you, I went out to our site that tracks everything. We were just shy of $200,000 that has been raised already. When I checked,
what was it last year? It was less. I mean,
I think it was
that's a pretty big jump.
Yeah. Our goal is 500,000, which was a very, big, hairy, audacious goal.
Yeah.
But there will be over $200,000 that the Alpharetta Rotary Club and all of our volunteers from other Rotary clubs and others give 100% of that money to the charities. We don't keep a dime of it, not even for administrative costs, nothing. It is simply a pass through to those charities to support the ministry and the work and all the things that they are doing to our community. And so if you're watching and we talked about giving and the pure joy that comes in giving. And if you want to experience that joy, sponsor Joe or myself, and we would greatly appreciate it.
Or both.
Yeah. Or both of us, and we both like lots of zeros at the end of the donation. So it's, don't be afraid of those zeros. Money will come back to you the more that you give. So, Joe.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. It's fun.
Yeah. It is fun. It's fun to get to know folks, fun to hear your story. And I really appreciate it. So again, this is Mike Connor, business coach with Action Coach. We're in the Treehouse. Next week we have Mike Patelis, who's going to be on with us. Mike Patelis founded Copecart, which is a business funding source. Somebody you probably should know
for sure.
That can help businesses to get quick, easy loans when they need some quick money. Week after that, we have Greg Santini, who's I'm getting some smoke here, so I better wrap it up. Greg Santini with senior assisted living locators, helps seniors find assisted living. And it's a great, faithful, good-hearted man. So that's the next couple of weeks. Check it out. Subscribe to us. We have a YouTube channel that's In The Treehouse. It is important for me and to help this grow and get it out there so people can hear stories like Joe's if you subscribe. And the more subscriptions we get, the more it will get out to other people. So if you're listening to this, please do go to the YouTube channel and subscribe and like it and share it out there so other people can see. So, all right. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep.